I am Jill Jusko. I am Senior Editor at Industry Week, as well as the Industry Week Best Plants Award Program Coordinator. And I'll be your presenter today. During the session, I'm going to tell you about the benefits, the costs, the challenges of the Best Plants competition. I'll walk you through an application highlighting some key questions and addressing maybe key spots that sometimes trip people up or you know, I think I'll just start with key questions. And I'll provide some insights on the performances achieved by past participants. Throughout the session, I will be taking questions. So if something pops into your mind, I actually had a couple of questions already that I'm going to address as we go along, because they fit right in with the presentation very nicely. But as we go along, if any questions occur to you and you want to ask them, just raise your hand and we'll take care of them as they go along. So again, I'm Jill Jusko, that's me. To tell you a little bit about myself, I have been with Industry Week for 11 years this year. This is also my 11th year participating in this program. And this is my 4th or 5th year leading the program as the program coordinator. Now when I say the program coordinator, just to be clear, as much as I could say the program coordinator, that means the conference, the online database, and the Best Plants competition. I am the program coordinator for the competition specifically. My goal with today's presentation is to inform, for some of you are going to be very familiar with the Best Plants competition and may have participated before and have some specific questions. Others of you are completely unfamiliar with the program. So for those, I'm going to attempt to explain how the program works. And I know some of you aren't even familiar with Industry Week. So I'm going to give you a little history of everything, talk about how the judging process works, show you some of the finalist performances, and then take your questions. Excuse me. If you're not familiar with Industry Week, I want to first tell you that we are a print publication, such as this. We go out to 125,000 manufacturing decision makers every month. We have a website, as it shows there, www.industryweek.com. In addition to what you see in our print publication, there is a wealth of web-specific information on the website. There's a lot of information about the IW Best Plants program on the website as well. We also have e-newsletter. One of them is a continuous improvement e-newsletter in which I actually write best practices from the Best Plants winners over the course of the year. So more information about the Best Plants winners shows up in those continuous improvement e-newsletters. We do webcasts and we have some blogs and forums. So it's a very participatory environment, and we are both online, in print, and as this conference demonstrates, we have an annual conference as well, and we like to see and share some best practices from our Best Plants winners and others at this annual event. I was trying to come up with a kind of a good umbrella description of what IW Best Plants is, and I'm not sure that I actually achieved that. But again, IW Best Plants, I am talking about the Industry Week Best Plants competition at this event, but the Industry Week Best Plants is this competition. It is also an online database. It is also a statistical profile comes from it, and the statistical profiles you did receive in your packets. So that is some of the information that we cull from the Best Plants winners and share some metrics with you. And again, it's the conference. So what is the purpose of the IW Best Plants Awards program? This is it. This is it. We want to, as I said, we want to recognize plants in North America that are just achieving manufacturing excellence, that are on the leading edge. We want to encourage other manufacturing managers to emulate those honorees, and we at Industry Week have, good forums by which to do that, being that we are in print, online, and we go out to many manufacturing executives. I mean, Industry Week itself is about sharing best practices. The IW Best Plants program, one of my favorite programs that we do at Industry Week, is a method to share that information. A little bit of the history. Industry Week is an annual program. We have been doing it since 1990. 1990, it was not precisely a competition as it is today. In 1990, the editors realized we had a forum for sharing some best practices from best plants, but we didn't have an infrastructure in place for a competition, so I shouldn't say we, I wasn't actually with Industry Week then, but the editors at the time selected some best plants in 1990, actually more than 10, based on knowledge they had from visiting plants and talking to plants, and based on input from external resources that we have. After 1990, it became a competition with the applications that you see in front of those, and I shouldn't say those specific applications. The applications are continually a work in process. They change from year to year. I would not say it's never a 100% change, but we do change it from year to year, add some questions, subtract some questions, clarify some questions. 1991 to 2007, it's been a competition, again with an application, and in 1996 we expanded it to Canada and Mexico. So this is a North American competition. It is a plant level competition. And as you will see as we move through the slides, what we are looking for in this competition is comprehensive excellence at a manufacturing plant. We aren't looking at solely your operations, your operations measures. We are looking at how you operate within the supply chain. We are looking at some environmental numbers. We are looking at safety. Are you ignoring safety, to meet some other metrics? We don't expect even the winners to be perfect in every area. We don't expect them to be perfect in any area, to be perfectly honest, but we do expect to see good metrics in most, if not all, areas. We do expect to see signs of continuous improvement. These are the 2007 Best Plants winners. They are all here today and tomorrow. If you have a chance, and I would urge you to drop in on some of their sessions. They're all having one-on-one interview sessions, and they are talking about the tools, technologies, practices, problems that they have in place or had in place that help them to get to where they are today. And they are all about sharing best practices. So it's an opportunity, again, that I would urge you to take up. I'm mentioning these 2007 winners actually for a couple of reasons. All of them are very good plants. All of them are intent on getting better. I also wanted to illustrate that we have plants from all different industries. We are not, we look across the board at industries. The competition is not designed or aimed at a particular industry. Again, we also have union plants and non-union plants. And we recognize during the judging process that there will be challenges potentially to union plants that a non-union plant does not have. Challenges to a defense contractor that a non-defense contractor may not have. Challenges that a processing facility may have that is not particularly relevant to a discrete manufacturer, and we recognize that and we take it into consideration in the judging process. Other things that we take into consideration when we are doing the judging is that how long you have been working at continuous improvement is going to impact your metrics. For example, if you have been working on reducing your cycle time for the last 10 years, and we see a cycle time reduction over the last 3 years of say 10% versus another facility's got 50%. We recognize that some facilities may have a 50% reduction because in fact they were starting in a much worse space. They might have started much sooner, or for other reasons.
I've got a question.
Yes.
That diversity that you talked about spread across many different industries. Is that a consideration or a desired output for you to show that kind of diversity in the end? Or is that just
No, in the end we are trying to find the 10 best plants of all the applicants. So it is not, we have 8 good discrete plants. We have some pretty good processing plants, so let's get them in so we have some variety. That our intent is the best plants that apply. I just want to point out that, a processing, I want to point out that we recognize and the judges recognize that there are some variations in the issues depending on what kind of facility you are.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, eligibility, that's pretty self-explanatory. Single plant or combined number of plants within a specified geography. You do have to have been operating at least 3 years, and we ask that because we don't want to be kind of unduly influenced by potentially either very good metrics as you ramp up or potentially very bad metrics as you ramp up that are just part and parcel, of starting. And we do like to, see some continuous improvement, so you actually have to have been around for at least some length of time.
What if you moved your plant, picked it up and moved it from one location to another?
The question was, what if you moved your plant, picked it up from one location to another? How does that impact the 3 years? If you picked up your plant and you moved, 25, 30 miles away, and you have primarily the same workforce or 90% of the same workforce, it has no impact. Okay, if, however, the facility, closed down in Utah and reopened in Florida and it's an entirely new workforce, and essentially a different plant altogether, that is a different story. There's a little bit of, you know, call me and ask me just to be sure. But again, we have had facilities that, you know, we outgrew our space, so we moved to a bigger and better location. The workforce is primarily what it was before, and that's fine with us. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, did I see another question?
Same question.
Same question? Okay. And again, it's competition, United States and its territories, Canada and Mexico, we are a North American competition. Some important numbers. Applications are available right now. You have them on your discs. If after this you are considering applying, they are on your discs. They are also available for download at the Best Plants website at IndustryWeek.com. They're available now, and they are due back completed June 19th. And this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about how the program works. What you have in front of you is an initial application. When we receive all those applications, June 19th, the first thing I do is kind of go through them and make sure that everybody is actually eligible. Every once in a while, I'll get a application that, for one reason or another, they really weren't able to apply. Then the first round judging process starts. So when I say first round, that's because there is more than one round. What we do in the first round, there are 5 or 6 judges, primarily internal to IndustryWeek. Actually, maybe more than that, maybe like 7 or 8 judges internal to IndustryWeek. They go through and, using a weighted scoring mechanism, score your plants. And I will get into that a little bit farther down the road. Based on the first round applications, we select a group of finalists. Those finalists usually number 25, not always 25, but usually we will select 25 finalists, and that is based on the round 1 application. For the 25 finalists, the competition continues. For the other applicants, if you did not make it as a finalist, then the competition for you this year has ended. Around July 31st, we make our selections of the finalists. Again, usually 25, not always. Those 25 finalists actually get a second round questionnaire, which is significantly different than the application that you have in front of you, and primarily helps to explain some things to us. And what I mean by that is, to 25 finalists, I'm going to just stick with 25 for purposes of this discussion. They will receive a second round application, and in that second round application we will say, can you provide us with some charts and histograms or some documentation of some of the metrics that you have provided, just so we can see where those numbers came from. Not all the metrics, a lot of the metrics. So that is one component of the follow-up questionnaire. The second component of the follow-up questionnaire, in my mind, probably the most important part of the follow-up questionnaire, is plant-specific questions. When I say plant-specific questions, I mean every single Best Plants finalist receives a different set of questions to answer with regard to their plant. What those questions are is dependent upon what is in your initial application. For example, we need clarification sometimes on material that you provided in round 1. Even if you became a finalist, that doesn't mean we understood everything or something couldn't be better explained. For example, you tell me that your scrap and rework costs decreased by 55% in the last 3 years. Not a question there. But if they decreased by, say, 155% in the last 3 years, and we get responses like this, you cannot actually reduce something more than 100%. So we know that that response is wrong. Rather than dinging you, if the entire remainder of the application is very well filled out and everything makes sense, one of the plant-specific questions might be, can you recalculate and tell us what the scrap and rework costs are supposed to be? Sometimes we get some blank responses that we can't figure out why they are blank. We ask that you fill out as much of the application as you can, and certainly there are reasons why some questions can't be answered. And usually we can tell why they can't. We will get, if we get an application that tells us their average manufacturing cycle time is 7 to 25 hours, or their average manufacturing cycle time reduction is 25 to 50% reduction. Well, once we're getting a span like that for an average, that's not helpful to us. We will go back and say, again, if all the other numbers are correct, we'll go back and say, okay, pick your primary products and give us those numbers for your primary products so that we have, they're clearly the responses, they're trying to help us out by giving us ranges for everything they produce. Stick with the primary product. But my point is, follow-up questionnaires, plant-specific questions to help get clarity on some of your responses in the first round application. And again, there's usually 7 to 10 of those. I can remember just this past year, I didn't understand why a scrap and rework reduction went up. There wasn't really their scrap and rework, went up. There wasn't an explanation as to why it went up, yet there wasn't anything to indicate that it actually should have gone up. So one of the questions that went to them was, please explain the circumstances as to why your scrap and rework has increased over the past 3 years, and what measures are you taking to improve that? I think a completely reasonable question. Well, the response was, oops, we put the decimal point in the wrong place. It really should have been this. So again, we're looking for some clarity for questions. We also ask in that follow-up questionnaire to just provide us a little bit of what you've learned. Share some of your best practices in terms of, lessons learned, I guess I should say. What lessons have you learned in this journey? And then we ask if you have any additional documentation that you want to share that we haven't requested that you believe will help in our consideration of choosing you for a best plant. Feel free to include that. So that is the round 2 questionnaire. It is a much speedier process asking you to fill that out and return materials than the round 1 application. So for finalists, there's 2 rounds of applications. We also, the 25 finalists, their initial applications do go out to some external judges, a small group of external judges who Industry Week has worked with for many years, who will provide some expertise relating to certain answers. Some are in manufacturing, some are professors, all sign confidentiality agreements. Again, all have worked with us a long time. They provide some feedback that based on knowledge that we don't have, or just to put another eye on the application. All that said, come mid-September, tentatively we select who the 10 best plants are going to be. When I say tentative, because we haven't actually seen any physical plant at this point. As far as we're concerned, you only exist on paper. So what we do is we tentatively select the 10 best plants and we go out and visit those 10 best plants. Make sure that they physically exist and make sure that what they tell us is in the application appears to be correct based on our visit. It's generally a 1-day visit. And at that time, we also pick up information with regard to any stories that we might be writing about the about the winners. If we visit the 10 plants and they all, live up to what was in the applications, they will become our winners. If we have reservations, then we will move sort of down the line and look at some of the reserve plants that very well may be best plants as well and look better once you visit them than they do on paper. So that is the story of how we get to the best plants. Yes?
Can you say how many applications you typically receive in a year?
Typically, we receive, I will say we receive typically, anywhere from 35 to 55. I know that's a big range, but it really varies year by year. And this is actually the first year that we are allowing an immediate download of the application. What we have done in past years is take the nominations, and then they receive the application, and then we get applications back, in which case sometimes we would get as many as 200 nominations, but only 50 would actually return a completed application. So there you go. There is a fee. The fee is based on the size of the parent company, not on the size of the plant. Meaning that if you're a Harley-Davidson, for example, and you have more than 500 people, regardless of if your plant only had 25 people in it, you would have the fee for the larger company. And I have a feeling I'm going to have to speed up here to make sure that I get everything in that I want to get in. What do I have till 12:15? Okay. No additional fees if we come out. The only fees are these fees you see right here. The application, you have a copy of it in front of you. I kind of describe it as part essay and part fill in the blank. And as I mentioned before, the application is weighted. It is weighted, the essay section has one weight, and then the various sections in the fill in the blank are another weight. This essay component is important, not because we're looking for excellence in your writing abilities or we're grading on your grammar, or we're looking for, the next famous novelist. What we are looking for, and this is important because it helps us understand your responses in the remainder of the application. We need to understand what kind of operations are going on in your plant. We ask, are you primarily, can you tell us if you're primarily, assembly? Are you doing injection molding? How many steps are there to your process? Are you doing testing? We are looking for that information again because as we go through and judge, it will help us explain certain other responses that you have. So the more clarity you can provide in what processes go on in your plant, again, helps us to understand it in the judging process. We ask for key initiatives and programs and anything that would help distinguish you. We ask that here because primarily the remainder of the application is fill in the blank. If there is something that you believe helps make your plant stand out that really doesn't fit in another area, that it helps make your plant stellar, and you want to make sure it gets in front of us and there really isn't another place for it, here is the place for it. And that does happen. And we want to know some of what you're doing in the community. And we like to ask about your short and long-term strategic goals because we want to know that you're not just thinking about the minutes, that you're looking ahead, that you're looking for what do we do to stay competitive, remain competitive, get more competitive. And here when I'm talking about sections, this is what I'm speaking to. Here are the various sections that make up the fill in the blank. Again, this is a weighted scoring, so different sections have different weights. The least weighted section is new product development. It holds the least weight, not because we don't consider it important. It holds the least weight because many facilities do not do new product development. So, we don't want to favor a plant or not favor a plant simply because they do not do new product development. Employee practices heavily weighted. Manufacturing, that's your operational numbers, heavily weighted. Competitiveness and marketing results, heavily weighted. Quality, supplier partnerships. Maintenance is a little less weighted, only because if you look at the application, we don't have a lot of maintenance-related questions, so we aren't going to make it a more heavily weighted area without appropriate attention to it. Yes, sir?
Question, do you have additional information in front of you there about these criteria?
I have the actual applications up front,
Very good.
and they also are on your disc.
Can you repeat again which ones are the heavily weighted?
Well, it's probably more important is what's not as heavily weighted, because more of them are heavily weighted than not. The more lightly weighted are new product development, maintenance, and environmental stewardship. And again, that is not because we don't think they're important. It's simply because we don't have a lot of environmental stewardship questions. We do have a lot of employment practices questions. We do have a lot of supplier partnership questions. Manufacturing operations, we're all about operations, that is heavily weighted. Competitiveness, it's important to us that if you're putting all these best practices and you have a goal to get better, to perform better, to be profitable. So obviously competitiveness and market results is important to us.
Jill, if we were to apply,
Yes.
and we didn't make it into the top 25,
Yes.
is there any kind of feedback that you get saying these are the areas that were red flags? Is there any kind of feedback mechanism?
There is a couple of feedback mechanisms that I will speak to in more detail later, but I'll tell you a little bit right now. Everybody who participates does receive sort of a customized benchmarking report that speaks to how your metrics matched up against everybody else in the aggregate. We don't share anybody's specific numbers with anybody else. That's all confidential. But you will see how your performance is compared with all the other applicants in a particular year, as well as how your performance is measured up against the best performances for each metric. So that is one feedback mechanism that you get. And then also, I am more than willing, and I do it probably for 25% of the applicants will want to have a conference call or a telephone call to go over judges' comments and or just to walk through the application with me and say, okay, where did we work, and what worked and what didn't work, and what can we do to improve, and that sort of thing. So, yes, sir.
I got one question.
Sure.
It shows a deadline for nominations June 2nd. Is there another?
That is, what I should say, did you look at you probably looked at what's on the disc. The presentation that you are seeing right now is not precisely the same as what is on the disc. A couple slides are different. We did take nominations until we had the applications ready and are available for download. So we were not going to take nominations after June 2nd. Now, June 2nd is out the window. It's no longer a relevant date. All that we care about is that we have completed applications by June 19th. I'm going to walk through some of the information we asked for a variety of reasons. Well, before I do, I also want to go back and talk a little bit about the fact that, again, I mentioned all those sections. You can be excellent in one section, and operations, for example, and still not make it to a finalist status because, again, as I mentioned, we're looking for comprehensive excellence. If, for example, we see, 100% on-time delivery, but the reason you're able to have a 100% on-time delivery is because you carry, 60 days worth of finished goods inventory, you know, and you might have reasons for carrying 60 days worth of finished goods inventory, good reasons, but you may have reasons that I have to carry 60 days worth of finished goods inventory because all my other processes are, you know, so messed up that this is the only way I can assure that my customers are going to get what they want. So, you know, we ask for all these numbers and they are broken down by sections, but we will look at the sections and see how those responses impact other areas. For example, one that comes to mind, we had a supplier, an application with a supplier partnership where their supplier's on-time delivery rate was less than 50%. And their poor supplier delivery, I mean, was just impacting other metrics. They didn't explicitly say it was impacting these other metrics, but you know, as you walked through the application and looked at the application, you could see that they were having on-time delivery issues. You know, when I went back and questioned them on that, they said, yeah, you know, we do have to carry extra inventory for that reason. You know, we are doing this for that reason. So, you know, what we see in one section will impact our understanding of other sections, which is why we ask that you be sort of as explicit as you can. We also allow footnoting 2 pages worth if necessary, and you know, I would suggest using that for questions that, or responses that, you know, may seem a little bit out of the ordinary. I'm only showing you these particular questions because we ask them, and we ask them just to have a better understanding again of the types of plants we are looking at. We'd like to know how big the plant is. The smaller the plant is, the more tasks any individual might be taking on. Might explain why they don't do this, or they do this. Publicly held plants, far more participation. Privately held companies, I think, are a little less willing to divulge some of the information that we request. We'd like to know the age of the plant. The age of the plant, you know, clearly can impact other metrics. Again, we have more discrete facilities than anything, and we have more older plants than anything. And I'm showing you this also to show that, you know, it's not just new plants that win.
Question on that. What happens if you've got an old factory that used to be the main hub, you've added onto it, you've got fairly new sections out there, and you still use some of the old sections? How do you handle that? Because we've got some places that are probably 60 or 80 years old in some parts of the plant, and others 3 to 5, within the same complex. We just shove the wall on.
Well, the plant was still built when, I mean, the plant age is still what the plant age is. If you are suggesting that it impacts some of your metrics or your performances or what you can do,
Right.
I would mention that up in the essay area.
Especially like when you add on or push a wall out where you can get easier flow of product.
That is something that, you know, and he's asking, you know, if you have different ages of your plants, if you put on additions or you maybe blown out a wall to change the flow of your plant. You know, the plant age in our mind is still what the plant age is. If you did some of those things to, you know, improve your flow, I would mention that in your essay questions. You know, say this is what we did to help our situation, and it worked. By the same token, if you did something like, you know, we've reduced inventory to the point that we closed down a warehouse, or we turned a warehouse into something else more productive than you know, just carrying. I would mention that in the essay area too. I mean, it's an illustration of improvements and changes that may not be reflected elsewhere. Quality, very important. It's important to your customer, it's important to us. We ask quite a few questions on quality. We ask what techniques you are using. We don't ask what techniques you are using because we are looking for you to be using specific techniques. For example, you don't get dinged if you aren't, you know, doing TQM. We do, again, like to know what you are doing because it may, when we see some of the performance metrics that we ask, it may or may not impact those. And these are the percentages. Let me see what percent. These are the percentages of plants that were doing these particular quality techniques.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on the last comment?
Which one?
Well, related to whether or not you're doing one or many of these things, will that ultimately impact your score?
The quality techniques, for
Yeah.
example?
Yeah.
If you're, say, doing 2 versus doing 10,
I thought the way that you said it implied that you wouldn't necessarily gain more or less favor in terms of the scoring result, whether or not you were using these techniques
or other techniques. That is correct. If we do see poor metrics, however, if you have some, very poor first pass yields and scrap and rework and poor warranty costs and some of those things, then we will look back and say, well, gee, what the heck are they doing? Are they doing anything?
Okay.
So we are just looking sort of what you're doing to get to where you are versus, we are looking for you to have 10 of the 12, or if you have 9 of the 12 or 9 of however many there are, you're not going to be scored any better than if you have 6 and are doing something else altogether. Ultimately, we'll rest more on the actual performance metrics, but this is important to help us, again, just understanding what you're doing to get to where you're doing.
And I say that just for clarity because, we have a continuous improvement process, much like Six Sigma, but a different path. And I just want to make sure and understand that it's clear that we wouldn't be, let's use the word dinged, for not using Six Sigma because we subscribe to a different philosophy.
You would not be dinged. That's the word I keep pulling out. You would not be dinged for that.
Okay.
And this is not a lean manufacturing program either. If you're not using lean and you're doing something else, or you're doing what somebody would hear described, they would say it's lean, but you don't use the word lean. That's not it's not a lean. It's a continuous improvement. We like to see manufacturing excellence and signs that you're making efforts to improve.
Good, thank you.
These are some of the quality metrics that were achieved by, this data is from the 2003 to 2007 finalists. Actually, I'm going to back up. These are the first pass yields for all of the applicants in the 2007 process. The first pass yield, the 98.09, that is the median first pass yield that was achieved by all the applicants in 2007. The median, by comparison, the median for all the finalists was 98.6. I'm just giving you some comparison numbers. So even our finalists have good numbers. It's not general. It's even primarily our applicants have pretty good numbers as well. Customer reject rate on shipped products, 630. That's the median. The average, that's the median for all applicants. The median for the finalists was 224. The average was 3226, 3,226. And again, this is for a comparison. The high was 32,000. Now, I put that up there because I want to make a point that customer reject rate varies significantly by the industry that you're in. We recognize that, and so we want to know it, and we look at it in context of your industry. More important to us in terms of judging is the next metric. Are you reducing your reject rate? Are you getting better? We understand that there are metrics that are very specific to your industry. We also recognize that there are certain metrics that should be good regardless of industry, i.e. your on-time delivery rate.
Question?
Yes?
Is the PPM that you're measuring there, is that as delivered or is that during first year?
We don't say it during the first year.
So it's upon arrival?
Well, you know what, how people are interpreting the question, I can't tell you. It's exactly as we stated in the application. If you have a copy of the application, that's exactly what we request.
So we should clarify.
Well, you know, if you have significantly different, I don't think anyone's giving me after a year. We also ask for scrap, and we also ask for warranty costs. Probably some of that is factored in a little bit on some other quality numbers that we request. Employment practices. Employment is very important to us. We are looking for, we have plenty of metrics that indicate that a more empowered employee results in better performances. So we do look for a good deal of employee empowerment. We do understand that union plans might have some challenges in that area, and we understand that. These are the median response rates. Again, I want to make a point that you don't have to be achieving these rates. These are just median rates. Some are achieving much better, some are achieving significantly worse. Some of these numbers are going to be in a statistical profile. Again, we have average annual hours of formal classroom training. We have plants that are doing significantly more because of the product that they produce. We have other plants that rely far more on on-the-job training. These numbers, I'm providing them because they're a guide, but you should not hold them as we are looking for these numbers or, don't bother. They're a guideline, absolutely. Your customers and your suppliers, how you operate in your value stream, again, that's important to getting your product out. That's important to performance. So we do want to know how you're doing. Does the plant have a formal customer satisfaction program in place? Do you at the plant level do anything? And I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't really believe that 95%. I think there's more corporate level satisfaction programs than there are plant level programs, to be quite honest. We continually struggle with that question. We'd like to know that you're sharing your, anything that you find out about the customers. Are you sharing it with the people, getting them more involved? Maybe they can help resolve issues, but you're keeping them out of the loop. How are you operating with your suppliers? Are they delivering on time? Amongst our finalists, they are delivering on time. What percentage what percentage of your materials no longer requires incoming inspection? Why do we ask that question? We're checking to see if, inspection is really not evaluated for your customer. So if you have put in processes that say, we have developed such a supplier base that we don't really need to check everything that comes in. We can trust that that material is what it's supposed to be. Now that's a plus. That's that to us demonstrates the level of communication and participation that you have with your customers or with your suppliers in this case. But we are looking at what kind of practices you've got up and down the value stream. This is pretty much the same answer that I'm going to give you for the quality section. We are asking what kind of practices that you are implementing in your plant. We aren't suggesting that anybody has to be implementing all of these or any of these. It does explain some of your other responses. Processing facilities may or may not be using, several of these practices, but we do like to get a sense of what the plants are doing. And again, it helps us understand your individual plants. We do ask if you're reducing your lot sizes. Again, we're looking at 4 continuous improvements. And again, the median lot size in the past 3 years, 50%. Again, we have some people that, they're at 1, so they can't reduce it any more than they have. So their response is going to be, 0% lot reduction. We're going to have a processing plant that says, well, lots isn't a measure we even use. We understand that as well, but we're looking for signs of continuous improvement. On-time delivery rates that we're seeing, and again, a good on-time delivery rate on the customer request dates is even a better metric than on a date promised, because the customers might be trying to hold you to something a little tighter than what you might otherwise do. But we are getting more and more, we're seeing on-time delivery rates based on customer request date. Again, reduction in manufacturing cycle time. Inventory management numbers. Productivity. We do ask how productivity has changed in the past 3 years. That's the more important than we do ask what your productivity is. More important to us is how much it has changed. Has it improved? Has it been reduced? Again, we are looking for plants that aren't just putting all these practices in and not getting any better. We want to see signs that you're getting better, that this is actually helping your business. Customer retention rate, the median's 100%, but I have to tell you, we have plants that, well, our retention rate is 40%. Our retention rate is 40% because, in fact, we decided to go through our customers and change our base and kind of remove customers that really weren't productive for us, weren't helping us out. Or a plant may have introduced a whole new product line that is just changing their customer base. So again, those kinds of situations going on in plants will impact numbers. And that is a case where I would footnote, if you say your customer retention rate is 20%, for example, and we saw that your entire application looks terrific, and we saw this 20% retention rate, what is going on? Without further explanation, that is one of the questions that would come up if we chose you as a finalist. Can you please explain why your customer retention rate is only 20%? That is a question that to you might be quite obvious, but we don't see anything externally to explain that. Those are the types of questions that we ask. Question always comes up as to why people choose to participate. And again, this is on your disc, so I don't want to belabor the points, but DST output won this year. Lockheed Martin. What I always tell people, is it's a pat on the back, some national recognition. It's good benchmarking. Even if you have that application and you don't fill it out and you don't turn it in, it's a good benchmarking tool. This year we actually added a couple of components. The benchmarking data is what I spoke to earlier. The national recognition is, I think I spoke to that, the magazine, the website, the conference. The winners also get 2 complimentary registrations, and we ask you to share some of your information with the other participants. You get 2-year access to the online database. If you take a look at the staff profile that you have, the online database actually allows you to manipulate data by type, union plant versus non-union plant. If you just want to see how processing plants did, if you just want to see how plants age 20 and higher did, you can kind of manipulate the data. The winners get that, and the trophies that you saw this morning. Finalists receive, again, the benchmarking we spoke about, a 1-year complimentary registration, a complimentary registration for conference next year, which is in Nashville, 1-year access to the database, and a recognition of accomplishment plaque. These are for the finalists. And all the applicants will receive 50% off a registration and 1-year access to that IW Best Plants online database. And the online database and the Best Plants conference are some additions to, to what we're offering for participants. Helpful hints, footnote wisely. Everything does not need to be footnoted. I say this, call or email me with questions if you're going to participate. I welcome questions. Don't get nearly enough of them from some plants probably. And there is no such thing as too many questions, so I won't go to that extreme. As I mentioned earlier, nothing can be reduced more than 100%. Don't leave sections blank without explanation. And the general statement, I mentioned that.
Do you have a font limit on the footnotes?
A font size?
Yeah.
I do have to be able to read it. I believe I have a font size on the entire application, which I believe is 8 or 10 points. I can't remember which it is. And you have 2 pages worth. And not too many people actually use up 2 complete pages.